So greetings, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Walter Wasacz. I'm from the Detroit-Berlin connection. Um, John Collins to my left is also part of the Detroit-Berlin connection. Dimitri Hegemann on the far left is founder of the Detroit-Berlin connection. Adrian Tonon from the city of Detroit is sitting next to Dimitri, and Traci Washington from Mahogany Records completes our panel, which is about 24-hour economy. And we're going to get started. I think this is a rich topic, or a really serious topic, and also one that we have been working on for 5 years. The Detroit-Berlin Connection began in late 2013. We've been conferencing ever since then. This is one of our main points of discussion, and Dimitri is our 24-hour expert. He's been doing 24-hour economy work in Berlin since the 1970s or 80s. I don't want to put too much of a date you too much. I mean, we have an experienced panel here, except for Traci. But Dimitri, tell us about the benefits of the 24-hour economy in Berlin. Why is it important? Why is it important in Berlin to have no curfew?
I must say, when the wall came down like 30 years ago, then it was very important. We did celebrate the abolishment of the curfew this year, since it was finished by an American major in the year 1949. That means 70 years. Berlin lived 70 years without a curfew. But when the wall came down and the euphoria was big, then young kids celebrated this reunification and with the sound of Detroit. And I must say, what happened then, you know? The nights were open, the authorities didn't chase, you know, the parties or so, and young people could discover the night and the city. And I must look back now that the success of the nighttime economy, you know, we call it nighttime economy, is enormous. It's an economic force in between, and it brings so many young people to Berlin, young startups, and it's very simple, you know. Cities where there's nothing going on, they don't like to go, but the vibrating nightlife of Berlin brings also a lot of additional business, you know, like hostels and also the airlines, and in the very end, the best ideas that are born after 3:30 in the morning, you know, also encourage people to do also their own thing, you know. If I came from a small city, you know, and had some ideas, 700 people, I really felt lonely, you know, alone. In the moment I moved to Berlin, I saw so many of them. I said, okay, we can think different, a lot of creative, open-minded people. And this new thinking really, I met in Berlin this new thinking. And so the city became a platform for complete new ideas, new visions, you know. But the club in the end is also so important because you meet people from all different professions, you know, IT people, philosophers, workers, you know, artists. And then it's easier in the night to think about things. Also, I would, last comment is talking about crime rates, you know, because most people say, hey, we don't have a curfew, or we have a curfew, like in the UK, we remember, or so last order was like 11 o'clock, you know, kids were kicked out, and then they started fighting outside. They did drink a lot in the last half an hour. I must say, in Berlin, the crime rate, we have like 300 venues. They open in the weekend like till 24 hours. They could. But the crime rate is very low, you know. It is just for one case, the crime that comes out of the clubs. One case for two clubs in 1 year, you know. That's a half case, a half report to the police for one club. And this is a point, you know. So I think Detroit, you know, this is my mantra, should rethink the situation they have here. And my advice would be open up the night, you know. And I think serious operators would come here and start something, would start different kind of business. It will go around the world today. I believe it will be a success story, and it's for me still the cheapest way, but there is a state law that is complicated. And
when you say 300 clubs and bars that have techno identity or electronic music identity, earlier we were talking to John Collins, who's a DJ with Underground Resistance, has been DJing since forever. And you cited how many, Billboard magazine just talked about how many clubs, in Detroit compared to Berlin. What is that number?
I'm sorry. There was an article on Billboard.com last week, and the title of the article was "Where do you dance in Detroit?" or "Places to dance in Detroit," and they only quoted 3 places, which was the Marble Bar, TV Lounge, and I can't remember Motor City Wine. I'm sorry. Yes, that was the third one. So, and that only included, I think, music that or clubs or venues that played electronic or techno music. So it didn't include other types of venues. But to his point, to your point, we do not have that many venues here. We did at one point in time, but over the years things changed, and due to economic issues, sort of a lot of different things, the club scene sort of dwindled here.
And Traci, we were just talking backstage about you're going to Europe. Kenny Dixon, who you work with, you're an associate of Moody Man's and Mahogany Records. Kenny does a lot of touring, makes money, probably more money, a lot more money outside of Detroit. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit? Like, how does an artist like Kenny Dixon make a living?
Well, most of our music is sold in Europe. Not only have the clubs dwindled here, but the record stores have dwindled here. Also, radio support has dwindled here. When we're overseas, people know the catalog of artists like Moody Man, Theo Parrish, Piranha Head, Underground Resistance for years back because there's support for these artists. So they're not just going to a nightclub to see someone for the first time. They're very well versed in Detroit music, as Dimitri said, and they have been for years. So because most of our music is sold there, there's support, there's no curfew in the clubs, there's a lot more performance opportunities, there's a lot more venues, there's a lot more events, a lot more music festivals. And I find that in the United States, we're beginning to copy the format, at least with the music festivals. They seem to have been more successful with later hours, more able to work within their communities to host artists that people don't normally get a chance to hear or see in the normal club circuit in their cities. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Yeah, and the more we talk about this, the more people understand this story of Detroit artists that really have to travel to make money. The better. The more people that get that, from your point of view, from John's point of view, and Adrian, who represents the city, is the night ambassador for the city of Detroit. Recently conferenced in Stockholm and has done a lot of conferences around Europe and U.S., Austin, and where else? And you've been in Montreal, right? I think.
Memphis recently as well.
So what is the experience you have when you go and you tell people that you are night ambassador of Detroit, and what's that give and take in your
First, if I
conversations?
look at everywhere we've traveled, any city or municipality that has displaced their creative community is begging for them back, because that's a community that we have to be very intentional about not displacing. And I think in Detroit, Berlin, Amsterdam, places that have gotten it and have been proactive have been very, very successful. And they have young people moving back to the city, because that's what it's all about. The next generation is our future, and we have to make sure to retain and attract them, and that's a big part of it. But other than that, I think people are excited. We all travel. When you go out of out of Detroit, especially to Europe, that when I was in Berlin the first time with the guys, with John and Mike Banks and the guys, I didn't really realize it until some 22-year-old young man pulled his shirt open, and he says, "Hey, Mike," and he's got a UR tattoo as big as his chest on his chest. I was like, that's what it's like traveling as a Detroiter. So it's somewhat a rock star experience, which is great, because we're a town that roll up our sleeves and we go to work. Nothing really good comes easy here. So that's why I think Detroiters are respected all over the world. So it's always been a great experience, but again, we learn a lot, we bring it back, and we apply it our own way.
So how do we? So Dimitri, how do we? So Adrian made a good. Just made. I want to keep that going. How do we go to work? So we go to work in Berlin. We go to work in Amsterdam. How do we go to work in Detroit and make this happen here? What is your solution?
I think also, before maybe I would like to talk about jobs, that nighttime economy would create. We have so many jobs in the creative industry, but especially for clubs also, like we're talking about 100,000, in total like 270,000 jobs in Berlin, And this is a serious thing, It is not just about artists or bartenders. It's so many people who involved, and who engaged in this movement. But yeah, in Berlin it's different. I didn't understand your question. What was it?
Well, you're answering it. So Adrian talked about going to work. Detroit goes to work. Detroit is a production city. We have a lot of producers. They go to work. They go to work and they make money in Berlin or Amsterdam, London. But
yes.
how do they make money in Detroit?
Yes, I got.
And how does everybody else make? So all the other workers that are connected, you're talking about that right now.
Yeah, and now I think what I think is what I don't get, because I'm based in Berlin and I've seen the last 30 years how it has changed our city, this nighttime economy. I don't get it that Detroit, has so many great artists, has so much so great music that they don't take this asset, besides to the car industry, and take it more serious, pay more attention, because there is space, you have affordable space, and if we would open, let's say 50 venues tomorrow, or 100, it will bring a benefit, a big benefit. European press would eat it, immediately. We have the systems today that so many operators and people who may be infected by such a news would move here, and I think this is what Detroit really needs, people. How to get people to Detroit, and we need a kind of a reason to move to Detroit, and I think the reason is in the music, and when you come to Detroit today, it's where to go, I try to count today the venues here in Detroit. I know, I did not get even 10 venues together, where people play, and this is a serious problem. Detroit's music, it's a mecca, of America. But when I come here as a foreigner, I don't know where to go, to see this and to feel it. I see all the Detroiters in Berlin, and in Europe.
Yeah.
It's funny, they steal our jobs.
Let me ask John. Why is it so? Is there something in the psychology, Detroit artists, or not just artists, but do we not love each other? Do we not love ourselves enough to do? I mean, what's because we talk about this all the time, that people go and they get praised, or they walk down the street in Berlin or in Amsterdam or Tokyo, and it's Detroit becomes this. I mean, they're icons of techno or whatever music they do, but in Detroit we don't do that. So what is?
Well, I think that does happen sometime. The music from Detroit is really, the music from Detroit is really, in any country you go to, electronic music, techno, Detroit techno, they just love it. So not saying that doesn't happen in Detroit, it happens on a much larger scale overseas. The other thing, our clubs close at 2 a.m., that's very true. As I stated before, there are not that many electronic music clubs, but there's other types of venues as well. But our after hours scene has been huge for many, many years in Detroit. So when the clubs closed at 2, there was always someplace else
You
to
can
go.
clap.
May not have been the safest place to be, but it happened. So there was an illegal type economy going on. So if we could make that legal, if laws could be changed to where bar hours can extend longer, 5, 6, or whatever in the morning, that would help. But also, to Dimitri's point, with a 24-hour economy, it brings more jobs. There could be exhibits, artists showcases, restaurants, cleaners. People don't all go to bed at 1 a.m. So there's a lot that we could do to help, and that is very true. Artists in Detroit, DJs, producers make a lot more money overseas than what they do here. But I'd still think that we are still very much appreciated here in Detroit because this is where all the music started.
I'd like to add too that I think that electronic music is still standing in the shadow of Motown. And a lot of the other industries, a lot of people in the city don't understand the contribution that electronic house and techno music, funk soul artists have had on the city and on the economy in the city. A lot of the interest in our city and a lot of venues that have sprung up to support artists in Detroit. And when they have like techno tourists, people that are traveling from all over the world to come here, and oftentimes their budget will only allow for a limited amount of time in the city. So, like you said, no, if I leave a club, I don't necessarily want to go to the Coney Island. You know, if I'm traveling and I need to buy something, where can I go? When you go to other cities, I think it's just if we're to become as we continue to grow into a world class city, we have to consider looking at not just supporting this music, but supporting the people that pour money into this economy. And it is a fact that many people that come here don't come because of the Motown Museum. They come because of artists here. They'll see that while they're here. But that even if the 24-hour economy in the meantime is something we have to look at long term, but even if it were something seasonal where certain restaurants would stay open longer, because I think we have to begin to inform not only people like Adrian from the city of Detroit, but other industries. They're not aware of it because there's no radio support. Even if you listen to satellite radio, it's very rare that I hear Detroit artists or people know the Belleville 3, but we have more. I always tell people we have more DJs than people in Detroit. You know, every time I'm in the airport, I run across DJs from Detroit, or I'll meet someone that I didn't know was from Detroit. But the average, a lot of the average citizens, high school students, our parents, and sometimes our families don't know what we do. They have no idea how popular this genre is. So I think that we need a massive campaign to inform and allow people to be able to hear this music. Like sometimes we'll get a song in an ad campaign, maybe during movement, but throughout the year, you know, nothing. So I think that we need to also look into, in addition to keeping venues open, we need some sort of radio support, something that's not necessarily based online but FM. There used to be a time when all these dudes would play on the radio and everyone knew who Jeff Mills was, and now no one knows who Moody Man is, Theo Parrish. These dudes walk up the street in relative obscurity in Detroit. And it's a blessing for them to be home and be normal, but I hate that our children and high school students don't know anything about. They're all listening to Wheezy, Yeezy, and Jeezy, and we have some of the most talented people on earth here. That people are traveling from all over the world. So I think we have to get involved, like John Collins is, with the city of Detroit, because we can't hold them accountable for what they don't know.
Let me ask you. Good. Are we talking about mainstreaming the underground? Are we talking about? I mean, this is a debatable sort of discussion, and I've talked to people about this many times who say, well, we don't want to become, mainstream. We want to stay underground, and we don't want the people that don't get it. We want them to stay away. We want just the people, the heads, right? The heads got to get it, but no one else. So how do we? So there's this.
When you go overseas and playing for 5,000 people or 10,000 people, they're all underground. So does the amount of people really does it really matter? So to your point, not necessarily mainstream. It is a certain type of a genre of music that appeals to maybe certain types of people, but we would still keep it the way it was. And I think that the way it is, and that is an attraction in itself, and people will gravitate to it and continue to. So I don't know if I would say it has to go mainstream.
I saw you make that face when I said mainstream, John. I saw you make that face. Yeah. No, but I agree. But there's that sort of that. Mainstream may not be the right word, but if you're walking around Barcelona or Berlin and you get recognized, you would get, and it's kind of a lifestyle. Lifestyle is different than here in Detroit, European lifestyle. I think techno, house, electronic dance music, and lifestyle in Europe just are very compatible.
And I think that maybe we have to take a different approach here because Detroit is not Berlin, Detroit is not Barcelona, and Detroit isn't London. So we have to kind of like formulate our own an economy that's going to work for the city of Detroit and the residents here.
So Adrian, from the city's point of view, how does the city, and the city is not responsible for creativity. It can enable or encourage and enable people to do what they do best. But how can the city, work alongside the creative community
So what we're,
to make it better?
we are the only city in the country that has a CBA, community benefits agreement. We take that very seriously. So what we do is we go into neighborhoods that are already organically happening, right? We're not going to tell a neighborhood this is what we're going to do here. So there's neighborhoods like Motown Holden neighborhood that you have Art Park, you have, obviously what's going on in Motown, you have, East Grand Boulevard, you have places where people want this economy, it's happening. So really what I do is I'll go in there and how can we pull a 24-hour permit? How can we work with the business owners? How can we work with, it's not just about the party, because this is a perfect thing. When you walk into a room with someone's like, oh, here comes the party, you're like, you want to see a real 24-hour economy? Go to Henry Ford Hospital. When their doctors, their nurses, their janitors get out at 5, 6 in the morning, is there a laundromat? Is there a dry cleaner? Is there a grocery store to go to? So that neighborhood there, we're working with Henry Ford to say, this Holden Street, this Art Park, we're going to build, we're trying to work with developers that are building sustainable, affordable housing for our creatives to live, work, and play sustainably, and to be very intentional about taking care of Detroiters that stayed and the kids of Detroiters that stayed. So we assure that our Detroit looks like our Detroit in 50
Well,
years.
let me ask you a hard question. So hospital and techno, or clubs and hospital, how compatible? How can you make that?
What is Henry Ford? Henry Ford is looking for their future workforce. If their future workforce is going to go somewhere, they're going to pick this hospital that's in a place where there's nothing to do, or they're going to pick this hospital where they can work, and then maybe at night they can go out and hang out and have a good time and enjoy life. So there is a common thread for them, I believe. And one of the best restaurants in 24-hour restaurant is actually in Henry Ford Hospital. Many people do not know that. Some of the best pizza in town. Yes, definitely.
But not only a restaurant. Why not bringing a techno club into a hospital? Yeah, I think it's a stay in a techno club is it has a therapeutical effect, and it's much cheaper. You see a doctor, $100 an hour, techno club, 48 hours, for $20, and it works. It works. I tell you, you enter another world and get out, and you're tough again. So why not? New alliances. A hospital and a techno club and a 24-hour restaurant. Not bad.
Leave it to Dimitri to come up with these things. And actually, in 10 years, you might see that. So there it is.
So, and Dimitri, how do we? So Berlin has done a very good job in analytics and metrics, and all these are boring, statistics. How many people? What kind of how do they measure the effect on the economy? I know there's some big numbers that Berlin can boast.
For instance, I'll give you a few numbers. We have like 33 million stays a year, hotel stays, not Airbnb, not private visits, because we do a city tax, and that's why we know this. And they get asked, why they're here, and 60% say they come because for the alternative culture. That includes also alternative restaurants, galleries, but the half of them, they come because of clubbing, That's a lot, This is more than 10 millions coming for clubbing, and they found out also that everybody spends 232 euros, $250, Everybody. So it's a serious thing. And I must say also, if we in Berlin would have a 2 a.m., like you have here, our night club culture would collapse, We would be boring, because the reason why they come to Berlin, they say there is something we do not have, and that's why they're coming and change also our city. They gave us also many others, as the clubs or the visitors, everybody brings an idea, and they gave us a lot of inspiration. They take also a lot of inspiration back home, and they encourage people. That's very important, to start kind of alternative business. It's very, very important. And that in total, it creates a very warm atmosphere, a creative atmosphere. My question to Adrian is, Berlin, for instance, invests the city like 800 million into culture, 400 from Germany, from the country, and 400 from the city. More in the funded culture, like opera houses, theaters, and so. How much money does the city of Detroit invest into culture?
So we did just go through bankruptcy, so we're being very fiscally responsible. But so we just hired, the mayor appointed Rochelle Riley as our new arts, culture, and entertainment director. And Rochelle's mission is to go out and to, she's got 3 initiatives that she's coming up with, and to go out and raise the money from private funders, the Skillmans of the world, the Lists of the world. And that's what we're doing, because government really does not have a lot of money to do that. I mean, we're focused on quality of life and making sure that our EMS, our response times, our DPD. We're hiring officers. We're doing all these things. We're putting money back into our rec centers. We're building rec centers. We're partnering with churches and businesses to create more recreation for our future, our kids. So it's really not something we have. But now with this new arts, culture, and entertainment office, once we get really solidified, the funders are there. They want to give the money. So with Rochelle doing that, it's definitely, we're going to see more coming to fruition. But the government, I believe, is a little different. You have more private funding from the government in Berlin. It works differently, right?
The question is also, is there a kind of a statement of the city of Berlin, of the Tresor? Is there like a statement that they recognize culture is very important for our future? Do you how to say, do you take it serious, or does
It's one word. The word is Detroit. Detroit. That's all it is. We're Detroit. It's in our DNA. Some of the greatest artists come from our city. The reason why they leave, and probably 5, 10 years ago, making in Detroit was moving to LA, was because we don't have an industry here. So we all have to work together to make sure our artists can live, work, and play here, bring the industry here, make the industry come here. And it's also up to our artists too to be, when someone says, oh, come move to LA, they're like, I'll spend 2 months in LA, but my home is in Detroit. So again, it's a responsibility of us all. But we it's not, someone has asked me before, they're like, what are you gonna brand Detroit as? Music this, like Austin is the music capital of the world. We're just like, it's Detroit. Like, there's no branding. That's who we are. It's in our DNA, and that's who we are. I travel through the city in terms of departments, and all of these creatives work these departments. They're heads of these departments. They're the front line of these departments, and everybody wants to contribute to it. So we just have to unify, and that's what we're doing. And hopefully, we're gonna reestablish Detroit as a creative epicenter once again.
How close? How close are we to do that? How unified are the departments? I mean, how is everybody on the same page?
I mean, if I can, and this is how I can gauge it. If I can walk into, okay, so let's say one of the first projects we worked on was over on Selden, right? We had a developer that put up $300,000-$400,000 condos. Across the street was Old Miami, that's been there 40 years, right? So we all get together, DPD, which is very much I mean, they go to Art Park, have a party, just be responsible, right? So DPD, the developer, the business owner, and the city get together, sit at a table, and say, we are not displacing that music venue. It's not happening. Those are jobs. That's culture. That's what makes your development cool. When we can do that, I feel that we are unifying. I feel that we are supporting, and I feel that the city is very supportive, because the city knows, anybody who knows that, again, being repetitive, but when you displace your creative community, you displace your mojo, and nobody wants to do that. So, but again, there are people that do complain. I had a meeting the other morning with someone that lives downtown in Grand Circus Park that says, we want to sleep from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And you're like, well, then go move to the suburbs if that's the case. But we can't say that, because those are our taxpayers and our constituents. We have to be diplomatic about it.
John?
And there are a lot of artists who are being displaced, just not even DJs and other types of artists as well. And the other thing is, to your point, people moving in, they have to get with the program. You just can't come in and change the narrative of the neighborhood, of what it was. And so a lot of that is going on, and I'm happy that what you're doing is making progress. It's just taking so long, and we've been working at this for a long time. And I have a question for you. How close are we to extending hours of operations for clubs? Is that it?
So here's where we are. So we have 3 venues that have volunteered, working with the state, that have 24-hour licenses. So we do, absolutely. So Marble Bar here, Tangent, and the Magic Stick, right? So 3 of them have 24-hour licenses. They can go 24 hours as long as they want. Why? Well, because they're the ones that stepped up. We had other venues that we worked with, and they said, no, we're good till 4, right? So with that, $160, nothing, right? Well, to somebody it's something, but $160 for a venue is not bad. But here's the thing. If you cannot serve alcohol, if you cannot get some sort of generating income, how your insurance is going to go up, you're paying your DJs, you're paying, so it sometimes doesn't make fiscal sense. But what we're working on, I don't think if we were to, this time around, we're not getting tons of support locally because it's not something that we're really pushing right now, but I think as we move forward that we will. But we are looking at a 4 a.m. ordinance that in certain areas you can open till 4 and serve liquor until 4. So there's something there there's some hope out there. This would be a statewide initiative. It's being sponsored by Senator Marshall Bullock from Detroit, and hopefully that's going to come to fruition, but it's going to still take a while to garner the support and get the support of some other legislative folks in Lansing. But it'll be a statewide, and then whoever wants to opt in or out can, but the mayor is very supportive of opting in if that happens.
So,
you know what? I mean, Lansing, I don't want to say politics, but we got to get the right people to sponsor it. And right now it's not something, we're really focused on car insurance, really focused on quality of life, money for our seniors, education, things like that. So pushing a 4 a.m. over those things in Lansing is just not a priority to the mayor. I know it's a priority to us, but what's that? There it is. We'll talk after. There it is. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the three venues you mentioned with the 24-hour, so is that available now to venues if they stepped up? You said only 3 stepped up.
Only 3 did. There was a couple. I mean, again, we don't go and say, do you want to be a 24? They come to us. It's already organically happening. Some of the other venues have said, we've talked to them and they said, we're not interested in doing this. They didn't want to take a chance. They didn't want to be the pioneers of it.
I'm concerned that communities within the African American community, like TV Bar or Bert's Warehouse, is it an issue where they're not informed or where they have the same opportunity? Obviously, you said anyone can apply. Because there is a perception that this is only available to certain venues in certain areas like Midtown or...
Do you want me to sugarcoat it or do you want the truth?
Truth.
So anybody that knows me personally knows who I'm in music myself and who I champion. I champion since I was a little kid, young, black, and brown Detroit, creating access and equity. That's what my mission is, what I live for. TV was the first place I went to. And they said, we're not interested. I went to Trey and I begged him to do it. And Trey is a very good friend, and Trey, excuse me. And he was not, they didn't want to take the chance to do it because they felt pressure of being, the pressure that you feel when you're black and brown. And that's why they probably were just like, we're good, we're gonna stay low key. And that's unfortunate. But at the same time, I really wanted to work with them. Maybe they'll come around now, but we need people to go there and say, listen, we need to champion you because they need to be on that list.
That was during movement, is that correct? During movement. So those licenses are still in process, they can still use them now, correct?
Absolutely. If you can talk them into doing it, I will go there tomorrow and get them with the state and get them registered.
Is it a license? What is it exactly? Is it a license? Is it a permit?
You know what? It was something that actually the state brought it to us. There's a young man, Chris Drake, who went through the books along with our law department and said there's already an ordinance there that if you do this, and that, check these 2 boxes, it's already there. We didn't have to go to Lansing. We didn't have to do anything. It's just sometimes it's right in front of us and we don't see it unless we're super intentional.
So all this time, nobody thought about this until...
Just like all this time, no one has done anything about the 24-hour dancing, the petition that Detroit Berlin has going, right? No one knew about it. I mean, that is being done, and that is being supported by the city, and that's something compliments to Detroit Berlin that has this. You probably speak better to it.
Say again. What?
To the petition.
Well, 2,000. We have over 2,000 signatures, and it's so just how many? 2,800. So Save Detroit. So if you want to sign it, we can. Yeah. Between 2 a.m. and 7:30 a.m., no dancing is permitted in the city of Detroit. The law goes back 70, probably longer than Berlin has had no curfew. And in our research, we found, it was done really to restrict clubs, blues, jazz clubs in Black Bottom, Paradise Valley. So there's politics issues. There's also auto industry, didn't want people coming to work drunk or hungover. So auto industry government really got together and said, no, we don't want dancing late at night. We want to restrict that. And dancing and alcohol sales are kind of intertwined in the code. So if you look at the code itself, and the code is on this petition, Michigan's the Liquor Control Commission and the city of Detroit kind of worked together on writing this ordinance. We probably could get some legal experts to dig into this a little bit deeper. Maybe we will if we need to. But we just want people to be able to dance between 2 a.m. and 7:30. There's no reason they shouldn't dance. I always tell people, where's the dance floor? Dance floor is right here. My feet are here. So this is the dance floor right here. We can dance wherever we want. We should be able to. There should be no restriction on dancing. So we want to get rid of that ordinance. We want to make sure we can dance whenever we want. And then we work on alcohol sales. We can chip away at that as well. But that's a little bit of the history. And we've got a great response. The petition is going worldwide. It's on change.org. So people in Australia and Japan and wherever are signing it. And people are amazed. Some of the comments we get are, in Detroit, you can't dance after 2 a.m. Are you kidding me? This is where John Collins and Underground Resistance lives and works, and Moody Man works here, lives here, and everybody we're on Grand Boulevard. We can't dance. So we're getting this incredulous, response from people who just say, of course Detroit should dance. Of course we should. So we're putting a little light pressure on Adrian and the city to make this happen. So Adrian has to come through. So we hope that we.
No pressure, no pressure. It's all good.
No pressure, man. Drop the pressure.
Unity, one Detroit.
So we're advocates for this. We're in a role of advocacy for dancing, and in a city that really, even back before Motown, helped bring the dance culture to the world. So we're a world dance capital, and no dancing after 2 a.m. is ridiculous.
Special shout out to Jay Monk, who thank you, because he's the one who suggested it. Give it up.
So Dimitri, in Berlin, no dancing after 2 a.m. would be just laughable, right? So everybody's dancing 2 a.m., 2 p.m. doesn't matter which p.m. or a.m. We're talking about. Maybe tell people who don't know. So Trésor or club opens on Friday night, closes on Monday in Berlin, yeah?
Yes, normal is we open by midnight, midnight. People, I don't know why, they come after 1:30, really late, when you close already. So they come. But to get it right, you have a 24 hours, some clubs have a 24 hours, but they just dancing, but not drinking, or what? Oh, this is the difference between Berlin and we drink 24 hours. 40, no, but we have this freedom, and I can tell you, nobody is drunk like on October Festival in Munich, People don't drink so much, in the clubs, and I haven't seen that, but they're in a good. So you should think about that too, We made experience in the last 30 years that the people do not drink so much. So don't be afraid of this. Or what is the reason this? I just want to understand why. Why is it at 2 a.m.? Is it alcohol? Is that a problem, or was it in the past?
It's probably something that's been traditional for many years, right? It's been there.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do see, and obviously everyone knows that, is that you see if a space is open past 2, that people are not trying to get that last drink in and do 3 shots before they leave. It's just gradually, and people come and people go, and it's very responsible. So that's what the case is, and that's why we're getting more traction for it, because people do realize it, and they see studies and best practices around the world and say that's something we can adopt here in Detroit.
Well, here's pushback on that would be, well, we're a car culture. We drive. In Berlin, there's public transportation, a lot of cycling. walking, people are, so how do we address those? How do we address
I
that?
mean, you know what? The car companies, the big three, are they're constantly thinking about what the next generation of transportation is, right? They know it's autonomous vehicles. They know it's the scooters. They know it's the mobility, right? So I
Mhm.
think that comes with it because
Mhm.
we did really push people. I mean, look at our freeways here. Look what
Mhm.
no underground transit. No, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
We have to learn from those mistakes in order to move forward. And I think the car companies are seeing that is the future. So hopefully that can
It-
together we can.
Is there a way to I mean, you make great point. Is there a way to partner with the auto companies and say, let's all work on this together? This is the future. We're talking about the future. We're talking about 24-hour economy, which I like to tell people now. My phone is in my bag, but my iPad, the 24-hour economy is right here. We all have the 24-hour economy. We're all living in the 24-hour economy. But how do we make the physical economy
Well,
represent what's
from the
online?
city, we have a mobility office that actually we have all sorts of, we had a Lyft program there where we were using with DDOT where you would get a $7 Lyft ride from anywhere to your DDOT station
Mm.
into home. That's something that hopefully it's going to be sustainable. It was halted for a moment, but when we started talking about 24-hour economy, the first department that stepped up was mobility. What can we do for you? We work in Greektown where, I went to meetings where we had actually, different leadership saying, how are we going to displace and close all these clubs? I said, give me 2 months to work with them. And now Greektown is thriving and they're repaving the streets and they're creating, access and equity for young Detroit that has a place to go downtown. Because I hear a lot from the neighborhoods, downtown's not for me. Yes, it is. We need you downtown. We need you everywhere in the city. We need you to work, live, and to buy your homes in the city and to live here and own your mud. So mobility, I know I'm going on a tangent, but mobility was one of the biggest factors in this nighttime economy, 24-hour economy conversation.
Sure. How much time do we have left? Where's the how much are we good for time? 10 minutes? Okay. And then that includes Q&A, or so 10 more minutes of talking and then Q, everything included. Okay, got it. Okay. I did Okay. Any
To understand, the Berlin situation, it's not only about this 24 hours, let's say party time or clubs. It is about a feeling of freedom, The freedom comes and you feel great. You don't have to go clubbing, but if you want, for instance, to see the movies, to go to the movies, you can do it in the night. You can order sushi, in the night. You can order a six-pack, at any gas station or we have some late shops, a lot of late shops, small shops. But you don't, and you can go clubbing, So this feeling is good. You could if you want, and it's not everywhere. We have, let's say, special areas where the venues are. This might be also a possibility for Detroit. Not, don't give a general, to everybody. I think, Amsterdam, for instance, is doing this. They ask if somebody want to run a venue. They ask, what are you doing, And when the club owner says, okay, I want to open a club and just want to sell liquor and that's it, then they say no. But if somebody comes up and says, okay, I offer some community functions, under the week, when the club is not open, so maybe the community can meet and the cats and everybody. I saw. So this helps also, So that brings together and I mean, what you have here in Detroit, you have the music, You have the music here. Other cities do not have it. So this is also a way. This feeling, of I can, if I need, I want, you go. That's possible. That calms down a lot of people, and that is what people also like. It is not just a clubbing thing. It is a lot different business, that's going on.
I like what you say when you say it's about what's possible. It's about something. It doesn't have to be about a club, or it doesn't have to be about techno or dancing, or it's what's possible.
And
It's
there
a-
are offers, there are offers. You can. I mean, do you have a senator for cultural affairs here in your council? Something like we have this in Berlin. Can I become this?
So I expect there be some questions. So if we can start, anybody So let's start right in the middle.
Thank you so much, guys. It's a really interesting conversation. Um, you guys kind of finished off on it, and it was something that I wrote in the beginning, which was 24-hour economy is always, as it relates in, I hate to use the word the West, but for lack of a better word, it relates around clubs and alcohol and stuff like that. And as somebody from Northwest Africa, we have 24-hour economies in our cities that are kind of organically created, but don't always focus around those things. And that's how you see younger people out. And there's like that sense of community, which tackles a lot of stuff about safety. And you know what I'm saying? Like if you feel safe enough to send your 19-year-old, your 18-year-old, your 16-year-old out at night, knowing that they're going to be at X, Y, Z areas, then that strengthens and continues to create a 24-hour economy. So just want to pick your brains about what are other venues or things or places that we could incorporate into a 24-hour economy in Detroit that is not alcohol centered or clubs or stuff like that.
Well, I guess I read about improv theater, sort of improv karaoke theater group in London, opened at midnight and closed at 6 a.m. and was theater. It was like people coming together to do like karaoke, but it was improv theater. I thought it was a very cool idea. So if you're not into techno, if you're not in, you're not, like all of us are here, but you're into theater, why not do it at midnight to 6? There's endless ideas we can do. Dimitri talks about poets and philosophers are born at night. Poets and philosophers we can have discussions. Or people sit quietly and just write and read, but they're out. They don't have to do it in their own home. They could be out on this, where there's inspiration out on the street. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to do night economy, so-called. And I don't like the word economy so much because it sort of it sounds like money. It sounds like capitalism. I'm not sure. I mean, there should be money and it should be part of it, but I like somehow putting culture in there, though culture is sort of a weird word also. But somehow we need a new definition for the night or 24 hours.
Even galleries, concerts, skateboarding in a area that's there's a lot of light for younger people. Plays, grocery stores, cleaners, restaurants. There's a lot that can be done, and also it would employ. It's about jobs as well, so it would also bring some money into the city.
I have a very clear example. We do a skating party called Soul Skate every 2 years, but I also roller skate nationally. And the rink doesn't open till midnight and we don't stop until 6 o'clock, and people don't want to leave then. There's no violence, there's no fights. It's surrounding around music, physical activity, friendship, traveling, because people come from throughout the country to come to certain parties. So there are examples. I'm for one, I'm an avid reader. I will stay at a bookstore until 24 hours straight if they allow me. But there are some examples. We do our party during movement, and there's no alcohol served in the rink, and it's extremely successful.
We have in Berlin, we have, for instance, a coffee, for elderly people, 75, they cannot sleep, they said, we cannot sleep. And we used a coffee that is a normal coffee that normally close at 6 p.m. But then they do a night shift now. And so all the elderly people come in, and start flirting, dating, reading newspapers, checking out. They also like to hang out, So. But it also creates jobs. We have so many students in our team, that finance their studies about this, and in Germany, we have a special situation where they can get a job in a club. They maybe work once a week, but that's it. And also the most venues open just in the weekends mainly, some under the week, but I think uh, I think it really would work here. it would work. It would bring the community together. Would develop new ideas we do not know now. And people start thinking, hey, I could do this and get this and whatever. Bowling and skateboarding in the night, and yeah, church is open. You can say everything bad things you've done. Yeah, but yeah.
Why are you looking at me, Dimitri? Any more questions?
Hello. I was just wondering, I totally understand that the city, especially having bankruptcy recently, needs to focus on like taking care of the necessity things. But in a purely economic perspective, what do you think about the fact that it's of my belief going to Berlin and going into that vibrant nightlife that's so cool is that actually the faster that we get our nightlife moving, the faster we get to expand our tax base and the faster we get more revenue coming in, and therefore, positive feedback loop on the everything else we have to do.
I mean, it's something that has to happen organically. We are being intentional about doing these things with 24-hour licenses, with hopefully trying to get someone to open a venue here in Detroit, and traveling the world and trying to make Detroit a place where people want to come live, work, and play. Even working with our immigration office, and which is a huge topic right now. But again, right now we're pulling bonds for demolishing houses, houses that cannot be rehabbed. We've rehabbed 7,000 houses over across the city, but there's ones that if you're a neighbor in the neighborhood and your child is walking by this house, and there's danger of someone pulling him, and it happens into one of these houses, like, we have to stay focused on that. That's where the money has to go. Because someone in the neighborhood that lives here that didn't leave here, because our number one principle is taking care of Detroiters that did not leave. They want that. That's their priority. And we can't look away from that to say, oh, we're going to open a new venue and we're going to party all night. And so it's just a fact of government being responsible. This is something in terms of the retention of artists that the mayor is very serious about. Again, with hiring and appointing Rochelle. It's just going to take some time, but it takes all of us to do it. It takes all of us to do it. And it also takes working with producers that throw rogue parties in abandoned spaces and all that. Yes, that's where art was born from, but that's also something we have to keep our constituents safe. So we're working with a lot of producers saying, I want to throw an all-night party. It might be a rogue party. It might be, but we're going to tell you about it. And 9 out of 10 times, DPD's like, as long as they told us and it's safe and it's responsible, we have the number of whoever the producer is, go ahead, have your party, have a great time. And so that's been working. So just, it's a multi-tier approach,
Well, that's some good information to know. Thank you. A lot of people aren't aware of that. How many people here knew?
It sounds like, talking about this as a journalist, it sounds like a headline, Adrian. Can Rochelle develop that and create a headline for the Free Press or former employer? I could do the headline, but I'm.
Coming out of this summit here is, there's going to be a lot of action plans, a lot of tangibles that come out of here. How do we take those tangibles and everyone go out and actually live them and be intentional about living them? And I think, to Republica, it's an honor to have you here and to be doing this and convening so many great people in the city. But taking these as action plans and moving them forward. Yes, this is an action plan that if someone wants to call me and say they're having this event in a space, we will make sure that as long as it's safe, everyone's working together, that you can have this event anywhere in the city that's, it will not get shut down. I absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah, definitely. You heard it here.
Anybody else? One last one. Right here. Yep, either one.
Thank you very much for very inspiring discussion. It was very interesting for me personally to hear the differences and similarities between Berlin and Detroit. But I would like to ask the question to Dimitri. about Berlin particularly, and how would you describe in which amount and how far the city, Berlin, changed from the 90s till now? And I mean, based on those changes from decade to decade, how would you or can you describe or think about what will be next 10 years or in next 20 years? Do we speak about, can we speak about same city? Because when you go to another German cities, I used to live in Munich, it's very boring city and there are no clubs. I mean, there is totally different way of living as in Berlin.
Yeah, I think the fall of the wall, this period of 4 or 5 years, there were no authorities, you know. So many young entrepreneurs could start their ideas. And we had on the other side, after the fall of the wall, we had space like Detroit has, affordable space or just squatted spaces, you know. And many people start an experiment, not just a club. People started a business like haircut or whatever, you know. Everybody tried something. In addition, we had like, I think 2,000, 3,000 startups, you know, small startups. They changed Berlin a lot. The image, the perspective of Berlin was a different one. Then we had this love parade thing, you know, what was CNN broadcasted these images, young people dancing in the street. It was not anymore the Nazi Germany, you know, or the walled city. It was a new, young city, you know. And this state, you know, comparing to Munich, I like to compare cities. That's always a way how to find differences. Munich, you know, had no wall, you know. In Munich, nothing changed. They got more serious, Bavarian people. But it's also like with Detroit. Berlin had this 30 years with a wall. It was like an island, you know, and it was a special crowd lived there, special kind of people, you know, a lot of military, a lot of students, and a lot of people who didn't want to join the army, you know, they moved there. It has a special elite status also, and it was not really Germany. And in those years, these 30 years with the wall, very high critical consciousness also grew in Berlin. Berlin is always very left wing. Bavaria is, you know, Bavaria, October, drinking a lot, and so it's a different cities. Maybe also Detroit is a city with music. Another city doesn't have this potential of music. That's just Detroit, you know. It's not. I don't know. It's not another city. I don't know. And in the next 10 years, I think Berlin. That's a problem. The gentrification took place, speculation, you know, money from Luxembourg or Cayman Island comes in. You know, they buy streets, complete streets. I don't understand this. The city, we ask the city to take care to keep these free spaces alive, you know, what we have, the venues still there. Because at the moment, it becomes like a city like Munich a little bit. It's very expensive to live there now, you know. The golden years are over. There's no space left. You know, students have big problems to find just a bed or a coaching, you know, so to study there. This has really changed, and the city thinks about to maybe to also with the rents goes up, they tripled, you know, comparing in the, you know, if you look 10 years back. So I think the spirit of Berlin will stay, and they will find solution. There's still enough open-minded people around, you know, and I do not know in any other city where this nighttime economy power is so strong like in Berlin, you know. And also in the last years, we have an industry. We developed an industry out of the electronic music. We have now many, some complete districts speak English, you know. This is also new. You go into a German coffee, order, bitte ein Kaffee, please one coffee. They answer, what do you want? You know, this is new. But I must say this industry of companies like Ableton or Native Instruments, IT companies or SoundCloud or Resident Advisor, you know, they all have an office here. You find, if you want to start like a publishing company or whatever, you find experts, great people, native speakers, you know, from all over the world, Chinese people. You find spies, you know, everybody is in Berlin, you know, you can. This is a challenge, but I think we cannot compare. Or let's say Bavaria or Munich or Düsseldorf completely different, you know. They do not have this nighttime economy, you know. They do not have it. Maybe there's no interest. So I said, somebody who doesn't want it, or he can move his ass and go to Bavaria, and who wants to hang out, he can move to Berlin and find out. I think it's still very young, this nighttime economy, and these numbers are also very fresh. We made a study, and that says 1.5 billion dollars in 1 year in Berlin because of nighttime economy, you know. This is serious, you know. So, and I think because most DJs here from Detroit drove us crazy in Europe, you know, they're all from Detroit, and so I think that's why it should happen here, you know. And it would change a lot, I tell you. It would change a lot. And it's, yeah, I hope Adrian will manage it, you know. Yeah, but this is, it's all right.
I think are we out of time? What's okay? Okay.
Hey, so bottom line on this whole 24-hour economy, with this ordinance still in the books, basically all of these venues that are operating 24 hours are currently breaking the law. So without that removed, I can't see how we can move forward. So everybody, please sign the petition. And as far as this conversation that Detroit doesn't have any money, there is an extreme mismanagement of funds going on in this city. In my neighborhood, they are cleaning the streets and repairing sidewalks on areas that are decimated where no one even lives. So if they could justify wasting money on repairing sidewalks and cleaning streets for neighborhoods that are ghost towns, then there's money to help the arts and support the arts. A year and a half ago when we were in this building, Mayor Duggan was here, and all of his conversations regarding the arts was very deflective. And his final comment was, what laws are in place that are standing in your way? And Mike Banks even repeated it. This ordinance is in our way, and until this is removed, we cannot move forward. So please support that and get with it. Thank you.
One more brave question. One more. Who's our last?
Hello, hello.
Okay.
One thing that I've noticed with respects to the majority of the talks that I've heard tonight, it seems like there's a lack of public awareness with respects to, you know, everything that's going on, whether it's licensing opportunities or new artists that are coming out. Like, a lot of people don't know different artists that come from Detroit. They have to go somewhere to blow up. What is being done with respects to the city of Detroit to kind of bring more awareness, marketing wise, as to kind of letting just the general population know what they can do personally to, like, what's really going on? Because I follow the city of Detroit's page, like Facebook page and the social media, and I feel like they've done a better job as kind of like letting you know what's going on. A lot of the more organic, you know, the Detroit is New Black, different people kind of let you know what's going on, but I don't feel like it's a lot of like national and international awareness as to what's going on and how people can kind of be more of a part of what's going on.
So I mean, you make a very good point. I sit in these meetings where Rochelle is like, we need to create more awareness. We need to, but the city only has, you know, a few channels that everything is focused on. We do have our, you know, media services channels, channel 21, that we do a lot of, you know, local artists and all that, but a lot of people are not watching those channels, right? So we are starting a website and a whole social media campaign around arts and culture and entertainment through this office. We're reestablishing it now. That's the first step, was the mayor appointing Rochelle to this position. The second step is we're bringing back the Arts Council. That's something that, you know, we're talking about. It's in the charter. It's something that the mayor is, you know, that's his ask of one of her top initiatives, of Rochelle's top initiatives, is to do that. Now we have this body that's already in the charter that can go around and create, you know, awareness. We've been doing all sorts of community engagement in all 7 districts, and going and seeing what, you know, each community wants. And there's so much going on. There's so much going on. You know, you have United Artists of Detroit that just received an endowment to you know, to really convene artists. That's Tyree and you know, in the group over there. So again, a lot of different things. But again, it's all of us coming together. Coming up in the creative industry, myself in Detroit, we always tended to work in silos. We just did. It just was what it was because, we had to grind that much more. So it wasn't about, a lot of cultivating the next generation. It wasn't a lot of reaching out to someone else because everyone was in this, like, just this grind mode. I think now to be intentional about everyone working together, doing things like this, having a lot more summits, having a lot of more conversations and working together is going to be part of that. So you make a great point, but there is a website and a whole media campaign that's coming down the pipeline. Would love to talk to you about it if it's something that you're interested in being a part of, and introduce you to Rochelle and Ayana and some of the team at the office.
So final just comment. So if let's plan a 24-hour party when you do the launch or the awareness. So we could call it awareness, and just let's do it. The Detroit Berlin connection. I won't speak for the entire board, but we can make a resolution. We'll be a part of that party. Other people can be a part of the party. So 24-hour event with an awareness campaign sort of focus on that. So I mean, let's talk about it. Let's talk about doing it. And we need a headline. We talked about the word headline earlier. It needs a headline. I mean, it could be a headline in Berlin or London but in Detroit, we need to make that headline here. So let's do it. Let's keep working together. Thanks everybody for coming. I hope this was, yep, one more question. Yes.
Hello. I like that you said how we work in silos. You guys talked earlier about radio support. We've got artists here that are getting 50 million, 100 million views, but like Ultra Records will work with rappers and collaborate. I want to know what prevents you guys from kind of doing the same with some of our local artists. And then secondly, if you have a liquor license here, there's only a certain amount of liquor licenses in the city of Detroit. And, if you can take your property for not paying taxes, if you don't use your liquor license, why isn't that readily available to someone that wants it instead of somebody holding it hostage like real estate?
So you can hold a liquor license for a year, from what I'm understanding, without using it. And then there was just 20 licenses that council just submitted recently to 20 small businesses, almost like a bistro license. That's a liquor license that is a local liquor license. So you have the state of Michigan, obviously, that control all the liquor licensing. But there are different mandates in order to hold a liquor license. It's just there's only so many per how many people live in the city. I mean, there's a criteria to it. I don't really know the points of the criteria other than that you cannot hold on to it for more than a year without using it. And some people will sell their liquor license. I've heard that liquor licenses are getting up to like 180, 200,000, in order to have it. So that's why council went to the neighborhoods and put out 20. They work with the state to put out 20 small business liquor licenses. So what was your first question, Myra? Be intentional about it, I think. Be intentional. Because you can, any artist knows that you get caught up in your work. You're in the studio. I have a lot of artists that they live in the studio. I'm like, you need to get out and like work with the kids and and convene and be who you are. You can't just be this superstar and sit in the studio all day long. But that's sometimes what happens. So again, it's intentionality of going out and bringing people together. We all have to be the conveners. We all have to be the ambassadors.
In terms of music, I work for someone who is extremely private, but very involved and very supportive of artists. Like Moody Man is notoriously private, but Sheefy McFly is on our label. Andres is on our label. Moody Man was on Drake's album, doesn't tell anybody about it because it's not a big deal to him. And he is someone that's probably in the studio now or helping someone cut their grass or doing something for the city of Detroit. But there's so many artists like, Mike Banks, John Collins, who are out working, Piranha Head working with Dime. Mike Huckabee working with Spin Inc. There's a lot of initiatives going on, and within this community, there's so many musicians, so many DJs that are. We all know each other one way or the other, and we have conversations and opportunities like this. We pass on numbers and we keep moving. In terms of promoting ourselves, some people are just that underground that they're not going to go post on Instagram or Facebook. Some people may have a social media manager, but I was the one speaking about radio support. I think it's very important to not assume that everyone, I'm almost 50, is not on social media all day. And a lot of this music grew out of listening to Mojo and driving through the city, and he would say, flash your lights, and you could see lights blinking all over the city of Detroit. So I think Detroit radio has been very important, and we don't want to overlook that. But there are opportunities still for us to engage with each other and support each other's labels, initiatives, releases, and all.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody. Thank you. That's it. No more questions. We're good? We're good? Thank you, thank you. Oh, one more.
Question to Adrian. Adrian, can we help you, you know? We all like to help you that we move forward, you know? I mean, I can do something in Berlin. I have a good network, you know? Everybody wants to help Detroit. So is there maybe a way how we can support you?
I mean, you know, we work closely with Detroit Berlin Connection. We work closely with all producers. We work closely with all artists, right? The petition that you started, I mean, that's help. Having this summit, bringing people together here, that's what it takes. So again, you know, you came, I've known Dimitri for about 5 years now, and he came to the office and he's like, I have this vision of the ditch and, you know, the fissure is the beacon and the this and that. These things are coming to fruition. So it's, again, sharing your vision, and then you know, implementing and living it, and not just talking it. So again, how can we all help each other is by living it and not just talking about it.
We have to come together.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you again. Thank you.